Welcome back to the 716 Sports Podcast here at recording on the end of Deadline Day Monday here in the National Hockey League. The Sabres make a move. They make a couple of moves, but one move in particular has caught a lot of attention, a lot of discussion around the NHL, the media. I'm sure you've heard people talking all day about the Taylor Hall trade. We'll talk about it. We'll get into that. We'll get into the less exciting trade between the Sabres and the Panthers for probably all of 45 seconds. And as always, tonight's show is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Manscaped, use our code 716sports for 20% off and free global shipping, which is worth way more in this economy than 20% off your order. So get those two things. Use our code 716sports at checkout. Boys, it's good to be back. Jeff here with Mike, Steve, and Justin as I look from my left to my right. The Sabres have not been driving us quite so insane, so this will be a very Sabres-centric podcast because at least at this point, they're watchable. We'll get back to that in a little bit.
I won't say they're good, but they're playing good hockey.
It no longer pains me to turn the game on at night. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that in a much greater detail here later on in the show. Let's start with the news of the day that broke around midnight last night, which is when you really want your trade news to break. Buffalo Sabres, and it felt like a foregone conclusion based on holding him out of games. And the rumors swirling everywhere that Taylor Hall was going to be traded. And finally, the axe drops. He goes to the Boston Bruins. That in and of itself feels weird. The inter-traditional division trade. I know the bubble divisions are a little bit different, but trade into Boston along with Curtis Lazar for Anders Bjork and a second-round pick. I'll stop there personally. What does everyone think about the move? At least, what was your first reaction to hearing about the move?
What was yours, Steve?
Unsurprised. Unsurprised that Taylor Hall moved. Unsurprised that it wasn't for a first-round pick. Doesn't mean that I was happy, but was unsurprised. I'm almost grateful it was a second-round pick and not a third. It seems like if it would have been just Taylor Hall, they might have only gotten a third. I don't know. I wasn't upset. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't... nothing about it seemed off. It doesn't necessarily feel like it was a great move. It just, yep, that was expected. Yep, that return is not surprising. I don't know.
I don't know. Literally, to me, it feels like at the moment when the Jeff Skinner for Cliff Poo trade, it just feels like the Sabres got that turned around on them.
Well, what pick was it for Cliff Poo? It was like with Cliff Poo. It was like was it a second?
Was it that early?
I think it was late. You might be right. You might be right.
It's different though. It's the deadline deal. The Cliff Poo and Jeff Skinner's an off-season deal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that one stands out because of when it happened.
They're obviously trying to dump Skinner's contract or just dump Skinner. It's different. You're angry about the deal. You said they look bad. They look bad not moving him too, though.
I think with a better return, maybe even with sending him out of the traditional division would have been better. But right now, to me, it looks like Kevin Adams is kind of out of his league, sending two players out.
But we're limited to the information that we have. Like, as far as Lazar's a UFA. As far as we know, he's not going to resign. He might have known that. So trade him. We got to pick on a player.
Yeah, so let's break down. So the two pieces they give up. I agree on Lazar.
I was pissed about Lazar, actually. Hall's whatever. I was pissed about Lazar.
Also, can I be the leader on the train of pumping the brakes on getting mad about Lazar? I have no problem, first of all, with Curtis Lazar. How he's played since he showed up, he's been fine. He's done everything I would have wanted him to. Probably even a little bit more than I expected, because his career was pretty much DOA when he showed up here, and now he's actually a decent bottom six piece.
Curtis Lazar's not a UFA. He's got a year left.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Someone told me he had a UFA earlier.
That doesn't expire till 22.
Well, that sucks.
The bigger part is, though, why do we care so much about our fourth center? This is what the Sabres fans have been doing for the last decade.
Because he was leading the team in goals.
That's not because of him. That's because of everything else they've done wrong. That guy should not be playing on a team that has better center depth. And theoretically, when Eichel comes back, someone was going to get a lot less minutes at center, and it shouldn't have been him, and it shouldn't have been Casey, and it shouldn't have been Asplund. It probably would have been Lazar, who maybe would have been playing fourth-line wing. We hold on to these bottom six centers, Gergensons. Even though I like Larson, we think these guys are the difference.
But could it have moved Sheehan out of here? To the bench, to the press box, to Siberia?
Yeah, but no one wants Riley Sheehan. And if you're trading just Taylor Hall and his massive cap hit, which is
I'm talking about move him to the press box, or I don't care if you can't get rid of him. Just move him to the press box. Don't just scratch him every game. Just scratch him every game. Move him to the taxi squad so he's not playing.
Sheeman's not even the worst active forward on the Sabres right now.
Fucking brutal.
Curtis Lazar.
At one point, he was behind the net on a penalty kill. He was behind the net defensively on a penalty kill. He looks like he doesn't know where he's playing. He kind of reminds me of Timbits hockey sometimes, where he's just following the puck around the ice.
Curtis Lazar is a motherfucking hockey player, and I love him. I sent that to Justin on March 31st. Not just because he scored, because he plays the game the right way. Because even last season, he was one of the few players driving the net consistently. I know he's a bottom six forward, but he's costing you $800,000. And to me, he's the prototypical bottom six forward. And like, when the Bruins make the playoffs, he's going to be heard from. Like, he's the kind of guy that you do add for that kind of depth. And Taylor Hall being gone was a foregone conclusion. Curtis Lazar being gone with a year left on his contract that was surprising to me, because he seemed to be in the team's plans going forward. Why wouldn't he be if he signed this deal? And I 100%, the way Kevin Adams phrased it today, the Bruins asked about him. Like, this was not Kevin Adams offering up Curtis Lazar, because he said last night at very late, he texted Curtis Lazar, talked to them and said, I'm not surprised that the Bruins asked about you, because the Boston Bruins, who know a thing or two about being good at hockey, identified him of the 20 players they could choose from this roster as a player they would like to have. And I don't love the guy like more than I wouldn't put him in the same grouping as I put, Jack Eichel or Sam Reinhart, or I love Jeff Skinner. I love watching him play in the last few games here, but he's the kind of guy I really liked having on the team.
And if you were a team that was going to make the playoffs in the next 3 years, he'd be a great piece to have. The Sabres are not that team. And maybe two, and I admittedly do not know a lot about Bjork. Boston media very quick to bury him, as they are anyone who is leaving Boston, and Sabres fans guilty of that as well, with people leaving the Bills and the Sabres. Bjork is a 24-year-old forward who had pretty good promise coming in and just hasn't seemed to stick. If you're the Sabres and you think that Bjork will replace some of that grit and willingness to drive the net and is 23, 24 years old, I don't hate it. I really don't.
And an RFA after this year. I think Justin might have mentioned that already.
Yes. But you probably make that trade under the assumption that you intend to keep him past this year then, because otherwise, if they don't tender Bjork, that becomes a whole different conversation in the offseason. We'll save that one.
He has to be part of the plans, or you got nothing in the trade.
Exactly.
You got nothing in the trade.
We also have to account for the fact
got
that
the second-round pick.
Taylor Hall had a full no-trade clause. And pretty much in as many words today, when asked about his no-trade clause, said that it helped him become a Bruin. Now, I'm not one to always try to read between the lines here, things that aren't said. But if I was to interpret what I think he's saying, and what seems to be the growing consensus, is that this was not necessarily the best offer the Sabres received for Taylor Hall, but it was the best one Taylor Hall was willing to allow them to complete. The Maple Leafs yesterday, in a whole hurry, got that Nick Foligno first-round pick trade going, and I would not be totally surprised, although it would have been weird to do a first-round swap for a player with the Leafs, maybe even weirder than with the Bruins. I feel like the Leafs, who are going to be one of the teams in on Taylor Hall, would have probably given the Sabres that first for Taylor Hall, and I feel like Hall nixed that. And there were at least a couple other teams in it. It sounds like by the time those other teams got back, Hall and his camp had already approved the move to Boston. He wanted to go there clearly. There were not a lot of first-round picks out to begin with. It's easy to look at Kevin Adams and be like, oh, this guy's out of his league. This guy, Kevin Adams, whether you agree with this mindset or not, said, by the trade deadline, I am taking the best thing for Taylor Hall. He is not coming back here next year. Not believing in the sunk cost of, well, we signed this guy for $8 million in the offseason. Just get rid of a guy who isn't playing anywhere close to what you hoped, when clearly the season at this point is a complete wash. Just get something. Maybe that second round pick doesn't become anything. Maybe Bjork doesn't turn his career around in Buffalo. But all I know is Taylor Hall for the rest of the season wasn't going to matter at all. Right. Is it disappointing a little bit to lose? Again, nothing against Lazar. I guess I just don't care about all these rotating guys who crash the net. We've always had a center who crashes the net, gets 10 goals as a ceiling, and is a great teammate. Those guys have never made this team better, because we continue to be completely terrible with at least one or two guys like that a season on the team. I hope Lazar all the best, but I really do not care that they flipped Lazar for Bjork.
It's just crazy. They get rid of all the good bottom six guys and keep all the shitty ones.
Really hard to trade a Pozo right now. The market is slim.
Well, you get rid of let Larson walk, and they keep Kirkensons, and they bring in Eakin, and they trade Lazar. I mean, I'm not mad. It's just I wouldn't say mad about it, but I was frustrated because I like Lazar. I like the way he plays the game. He's a solid player. He plays the game the way you want a guy down there to play. But I get what you're saying, Jeff, and that's fair. I thought the same thing earlier. Like, why am I getting mad about the fucking worst team in the league's fourth center?
Right.
I thought the same thing to myself earlier, but
and I think it equates ultimately to more play time for Casey and for Asplund.
I guess to me, it just caught me off guard. It seemed really random. Like Lazar.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
Lazar,
I was surprised that it happened
Because he had term left too.
Yeah,
if
that's
he was
kinda
a UFA, then
I think
it might change
that's
things.
more of it. It was at midnight, and I was just
Well, midnight. You were scrolling through Twitter. You see this happening. That your first reactions are going to be very visceral. You're not calling up all your buddies at midnight Eastern time to be like, "What do you guys think of this trip?" Where like this is the prime time for you, like half asleep on your phone, just going with what the feelings are.
And it's tough for Kevin Adams too, because obviously no trade clause, and you give a player like him a 1-year deal. The no trade clause is a perk to have him take that deal,
Right.
And the Bruins know he has it, and so then they know that they have all the leverage in negotiations, right? They have all the leverage because he's telling Kevin Adams, "I want to go to this team," right? And also you got to think of the fact too that if first round pick wasn't on the table, the Bruins aren't a clear cut team to make it into playoffs. That could be a lottery pick, so maybe they want to keep that pick because it could be a potential lottery pick. But still, I was talking to Steve earlier. He's like, "We'll get the pick and put a condition on it," but Bruins did have all the leverage. Every team had the leverage. It was a super buyer's market this year.
Yeah.
And all the top teams and new players all have like thousands of dollars in cap space.
Yeah, we talked about that. There's literally 8 teams against the cap that have less than $250,000. So you have to get super creative to even squeeze in a player, not an $8 million player, a player. Like you're talking about retroacting guys to IR just to fit a league minimum guy on your roster. There's just no way to do it. And that was one of the things that the Bruins had was enough cap space to take on half of what was left of Taylor Hall's salary. But they also have a formula, a winning team that Taylor Hall would be interested in. And you talked about we talked about the lack of salary cap, and look at how creative Toronto had to get. They had to give a 4th round pick to San Jose to take half of Nick Foligno's salary, which is great GM work. I thought it was phenomenal GM work to make that deal happen. Toronto is going all in the way that they're building this team for the postseason, and I cannot wait for them to lose in the first round, and I really hope they do. If they win in the first round, I'll do something crazy. I don't know. I'll think of something because I can't stand them. But
Eat a coffee crisp.
But they're doing things very, very well as a team organizationally, and that's what it took to get a player. You had to give up a first and a fourth and involve a third team, and good credit to them. And as we said, I'm not holding this against Kevin Adams at all. People that think he got fleeced as a rookie GM, no, he got fleeced by the situation that he's in as a rookie GM, where it was a perfect storm. Taylor Hall has a full no movement clause, so it's up to him where he wants to go. Teams don't want to give up a first round pick ever, let alone for a player that's struggling this year. It's not like Taylor Hall played well. And then you have the cap situation with the flat cap, and just no one has any room to bring a player in. So it was kind of a perfect storm for this to happen. And like I said, I'm not disappointed at all. In that being said, the Sabres now have 10 picks this year and 5 in the first 3 rounds. I hope they actually pick like 2 of them. I want them to package all these trades. And not to jump ahead, Kevin Adams in his press conference today, that was one of the most encouraging things he said. He said, yes, draft picks are good and we can build our team using them, but draft picks also are currency. And with I think it was Andrew Peters that asked him, he's now been a part of the big 3. He was part of a NHL draft, part of a free agency signing day, and part of a trade deadline day. And I really liked that. Tickled my ears when he said draft picks are currency, because I'm hoping even if they win the lottery and pick first overall, they fire it to the sun and trade it for, some great players. You would get a haul.
That's what I would say.
Even though Owen Power's pretty good, they would get an absolute haul this offseason if they trade first overall, if they win the lottery. It's going to accelerate any rebuild or restructure or whatever term you want to use for this team by 3 years if they trade number 1 overall.
Justin's microphone somehow got unplugged. He is trying to fix that. So there you go.
Hello.
Hey, go ahead and
No.
finish your sentence there, bud.
Still not working. Hello? There we go. Got it. Yeah, I would say that if they get that first pick, just fucking get rid of it. This team cannot develop talent. This team obviously cannot develop young talent. Just let them just trade it And like Steve said, bring in an absolute haul.
Not
Taylor Hall, though.
This team also can't afford to. That's good. I like that. This team also can't afford to bring in anyone of value because they have no salary cap space. So that's great in concept. And I always endorse the concept of trading, getting the best value for a pick, even if it's not using the pick itself, trading it for multiple later picks or anything. But unless I'm wrong here, they are not exactly flush with cash next season. And I know that there are things that can be done to mitigate that.
Well, they'll have $8 million off the books right out of the gate with Taylor Hall gone.
Well, I mean, he was a UFA, so that's. But I mean,
this point is against the cap. Next year, if the cap stays exactly the same, you have $8 million there. So I mean, not that $8 million's a ton, but
I guess I'm assuming that some of that money is going to go to paying guys like Samson Reinhart and Linus Ullmark.
Sam has a year left, right? Didn't he sign a 2-year deal? Right? Sam's got 1 year left. He's an RFA at the end of this deal. Why am I drawing a blank on how many years Sam Reinhart has left? I'll look that up. But Linus Ullmark, that was we listen. We were really encouraged when they said that they wanted to sign a long-term deal with Linus. Then it was really discouraging when Ullmark said he wants to go to the market, and now them not moving him today makes me encouraged again that maybe they can come to terms with him.
I think Linus has to be realistic to himself too, and I like him. I like him a lot. This team is very noticeably different when he is in the lineup. Or maybe just any goalie with a pulse at this point, because, man, Hutton, Tokarski, and Johansson was not it, chief. But he's also a goaltender.
RFA after this year, right? They will have to pay Sam.
Yes. They also... Linus has had multiple longer-term injuries over the last couple of years, and no one is flocking to the market for an unproven goaltender with an injury history.
And with the year Sam's having this year on a bad team, I don't think they're going to get off with, 5.25 again?
No. And the bridge deal is great in the very short term because you just kick the can down the curb.
And kept him in RFA. But you do at some point have to pay the man or not pay the man. You can't just indefinitely kind of pay the man. And I think the...
He's not having a great year. At one point he was.
He was hot for a while there.
But that's how he always is. He's hot, then he dips, and then he's kind of hot for a couple more games, and then he's been a ghost lately.
He's hot and he's cold. He's yes and he's no. The Katy Perry song-loving Samson Reinhart. I do think that he's been better this year than the stats show, and his ability to actually play some center this year has been nice.
But I'm thinking he's going to end up around 40 points in a 56-game season, so that's probably about, 70 or 75 if you extrapolate that out, 70 or so if you extrapolate that out. So, but yeah, he is streaky, but I mean, games like this game, yesterday?
Yeah.
Played Philly yesterday, yeah. I mean, got that goal off the Skinner's nice play off the faceoff, but he's kind of noticeable for the right reasons lately.
Well, and we talk about him being streaky. At least he goes on hot streaks.
Yeah.
Because most of this team just it doesn't. Like, and we also can talk about how Kyle Oposo is under Granato is like a point a game player so far.
How about the entire team though?
Correct, but someone that we thought was, for years we defended Oposo. Well, he skates hard, he plays that bottom six role well. But it's not his fault that he's getting paid all this money and got all these injuries. He got overpaid on free agency like most players do. And now all of a sudden, under Granato, he's a point-a-game player. And I'm not saying he's a $6 million man, but he's got some life.
Though the initial signing, the overpay is not as bad as it turned out to be.
Correct.
It looked better when it happened, in other words.
I mean, he's still not Matt Molson.
True.
Who got jettisoned to Ontario, California.
I still think the plan with that was Molson, Okposo, and Eichel as a line, and hopefully recapture some of what they had. They were
trying to recreate the Tavares line from the Islanders, where those two guys played with John Tavares, one of the greatest creators and facilitators of his generation. The problem is that both those guys fell off a cliff when they were forced to play with Jack.
Except Molson was good when he was here. Before he got traded to Minnesota, and he was good in Minnesota, and then he came back. He did the rare trade on deadline day and sign in the offseason, and it was a 5x5 deal. It didn't look bad at all, and he was good when he was here. He was a goal scorer, and then he was good with Minnesota, and then they re-signed him, and he wasn't good anymore. And I don't know what happened, but
the other thing I've noticed with Sam that I don't think is his fault is that I think that he and Victor Olofsson absolutely suck together. Those two guys have no concept of what to do when they're on the ice at the same time. There was the play in overtime, the game they lost the 3-1 comeback game against the Flyers.
Yes.
Where they turned that puck over the blue line because Victor
Between the
was
two of
waiting
them,
for Sam. They're trying to
yes.
drop it to each other. They made that exact same play in the Sunday game. It just didn't end up mattering. Where there's like they both enter the zone and they both like expect the other one to go do something, but they just both keep dropping the puck back to each other at the blue line. Part of it is that Sam and Victor Olofsson cannot work together on offense. I don't know why. It's really weird to watch, but they do not have any clue of how to move the puck together.
Olofsson just stinks 5-on-5 in general. Like, next year, he should be just a third-line player only. Oh, and power play specialist. Put him on a power play, and that's it. Like, he just take him off the top 6 full, because he doesn't do anything. He's completely ineffective. He gets the puck, and he skates a few strides with it and just turns it over, dumps it in. Doesn't create anything, doesn't even shoot very much 5-on-5. Doesn't put any shots on net. Am I right?
Because he can't set up in the faceoff dot 5-on-5.
It's crazy.
There's
a lot
not
of his
enough
shots
room to
blocked.
just do that.
I mean, his shot is elite. Like, we know that, right? When he can get it off, but like, he doesn't need to be one timer. His shot is still good. Just not taking one timers. He just needs to shoot it.
Can we segue from an elite shot? What you were talking about? Can we use that elite shot as a segue to talk about what?
No.
R2 Ruotsalainen's goal yesterday
I'm sure glad we've been playing Cody Eakin over this guy all
was
year. What a great use of assets.
absolutely plastered. That was a great shot. That was a beautiful play and an absolutely beautiful shot by R2. And that it's exciting to have him scoring anyway, but that goal was an absolute beauty to rip that puck the way that he did. And that's what we've been hoping and waiting for. And that was who Kevin Adams named right away. So Kevin Adams was asked today what the plans are for players in Rochester to come up and play in Buffalo. And he did make it a point. You only have so many recalls. And, they have R2 up on like an emergency basis because Jack and Cousins and so many people were hurt. But he made it seem like it might be difficult to get these guys from Rochester up here because you're limited to how many recalls you're allowed to have, which is discouraging because I'd like to see Jack Quinn play. These games don't matter for the standings, so I'd like to see Jack Quinn play. I'd like to see UPL play. He pointed out Matthias Samuelson's having a real nice year in Rochester, which I admittedly couldn't have told you if he didn't say that. But yeah, I'm hopeful for, as always, hopeful for what's in the pipeline. But
The pipeline feels a little empty, but there is some good pieces to be had in it.
there has to be eventually because they've been trying. For
the
years.
odds are good, right? I just seeing Ruotsalainen score that beautiful goal on Sunday is just furthering to like no one who really followed Ruotsalainen is surprised that he's capable of scoring a goal like that. It's just the gymnastics and roster decisions that were made to make it so it took so many injuries and things for him to crack the lineup is insane to me. We're playing Cody Eakin every game. We're playing, and again, Lazar is fine. Ruotsalainen's ceiling is leagues ahead of Cody Eakin and Curtis Lazar, and this guy is playing in Europe and playing in Rochester while we trot out Eakin and his league's worst offensive and defensive metrics every single game. We won't try Ruotsalainen once. We won't try Asplund once. It took multiple injuries and players just straight up getting traded or being held off for trades to even give these young guys a shot. That's why I don't care about the trade of Lazar.
Hey,
He's a great player. Play some of these guys.
Next year, fourth line center is on the team, and it's Cody Eakin, right?
Cody Eakin should be fired out of a cannon directly into the sun.
So do you think the Sabres have the most number of Rasmuses on the same team in North America?
So they were the first to have a Rasmus. The Sabres were the first to have a Rasmus, and maybe
And
the
now
only.
they have 3.
Correct. And I remember when Dahlin came, they became the first team to have 2. Because Rasmus, I don't know if there's a lot of, but now there's all the Rasmussens.
It's the hip name.
Apparently the plural of Rasmus is Rasmussen, which is hilarious because I immediately think of Eric Rasmussen, who played for Buffalo. So the Rasmus is strong with this team.
And funny enough, the rumor was they're going to trade Allmark to Toronto, and Rasmus Sandin was named one of the possible targets.
They just collected them all. Gonna form
The Buffalo Rasmuses.
gonna form an exodia of Rasmuses and just win.
You're talking about trading Allmark. One of the things that's been talked about is what the Sabres would do at goal if
They'd be in a tough
Allmark leaves. And one of the options that has been kicked around is Elvis Merzlikins from Columbus because they have Jonas Caprasal as well. And one of the perks of if they would have acquired or would acquire Elvis Merzlikins before the expansion draft is he does not need to be protected because he's only been in the league for 2 years. So I don't know why Columbus would deal him if it's someone they didn't have to protect anyway, unless it was a deadline deal.
I think that's exactly why Columbus didn't trade him.
Correct, but they're going to protect Korpisalo anyway. He was kind of groomed to be their number one. And put together, those two guys make like $9 million, which is not a lot.
That's a really good situation for them. And if they decide after the season they want to trade Merzlikins to a team that needs a goalie that maybe they don't have to protect, then the price can be much higher for them.
And so that's when Kevin Adams has 10 picks this year and can give 3 of them away if need be. To be clear, I want Linus here. I really do. He's proven himself. Yeah,
such a good goalie.
He's a good goalie. They play better in front of him, I agree, but he also plays better behind them. I'm tired of the hate that he's gotten over the years, and he continues to silence the critics because even in a game where he didn't play well, like he gave up 3 early. What game was it that he gave up 3 early and they won anyway? It was a shootout against the Rangers, right? The shootout win? Yes. Where he gave up 3 in the first, and it felt like he was struggling. And no, because it was the game they won 5-3 because I was proud of them for scoring 5 for him because Lena struggled in the first, and they were losing 3-1 or whatever it was, and the Sabres put up 5. I said it felt good to have the Sabres score for their goaltender who might have struggled because there were so many games that they only scored 2 and Linus won it for him. But he is good. I want him here. I think he needs to be here long term. The hope is that either the market isn't that good for starting goalies that aren't proven, but also there's this idea that if he stays here, he knows he's the guy. Like there's no competition for him. I don't think there's any competition for him to be the starter here if he signs this offseason for next year.
I think it's just time to groom UPL.
Give him more time. Because he's been getting ripped up a little bit down there.
Needs it. But yeah, man.
They just need Ullmark to stay healthy. It doesn't do anyone any favors, doesn't do him any favors, and neither getting a bigger contract or developing.
Well, I'm sure that's part of the issue with negotiations. It's something
hard to commit to a guy who you're worried how many games he's going to play next year. It's not necessarily fair to him, but it's kind of how it is.
You guys follow Eric Portillo at all? Backing up in Michigan, played 7 games this year, like a 96 save percentage and a goals against average around 1.
It's all right.
And he's backing up in Michigan. So there's another, that the good news is people that bitch about the Sabres not having goaltending in the pipeline just don't pay attention because you have UPL who is 1 step away from being ready and Portillo who's probably 2 or 3 steps away from being ready, but they both show promise. UPL's been struggling in the AHL a little bit, but you know, they do have guys in the pipeline. None of them are ready yet. You need Ullmark to stick around to give him more time.
Isn't UPL 20?
He's young.
It takes goalies time, right? Like it takes. Look at
Ryan Miller. Miller didn't start playing regular in the NHL until he was 26.
Look at Ullmark. It took Ullmark a while. I was at Ullmark's first game.
I was at Ryan Miller's.
I want to say it was. I was too. I want to say it was against the Devils. Ullmark's.
UPL is 22.
Yeah. So that's young for a goalie.
Miller got
super young.
Millsy got shelled.
He did.
Game for like 6 or 7.
Yeah,
right?
he got pulled. He didn't even finish the game.
Against the Lightning, I believe. I forget. I was there.
And then the first year they named him a starter. That might have been 05-06, and
let's talk
we
about
all know what that looked like.
How much the team has done, almost a 180. I'd say almost a 180. But the team looks so different. The brand of hockey is so much different. I didn't realize how basic the hockey was that Kruger had them playing until like a week or 2 after he got fired, because it's a whole different team now. They're playing really good hockey. And they haven't played great teams. They're playing the Flyers and the Devils and
the Rangers.
Penguins and the Rangers, right? They played the Caps, and they played a good game though. They went down early.
They went down swinging.
They battled back, and they gave them a run for the money. They haven't played. Yeah. They're done with the Islanders, right? They're done with the Islanders.
Yes,
they played all 6.
They played them 19 games in a row. So
still got some Bruins games.
Just 6 left against the Bruins.
Yeah,
including the one tomorrow where Taylor Hall drove to Boston so he could play.
Taylor Hall got multiple speeding tickets on the 90 today, making sure he got to Boston as soon as possible to try to score as many goals tomorrow as he has the rest of the season.
I hope to God he doesn't.
He's gonna get 5.
He's gonna score. He's gonna go out and score a hat trick tomorrow, and all of Buffalo's gonna implode.
Holy shit! I could see it now.
He's gonna get to play with Bergeron and Pasternak. He's gonna get fed just beautiful goals.
He couldn't score shit with fucking Jack Eichel.
He scored the first game with Jack Eichel. Remember that?
I haven't seen that Jack Eichel in a while.
Yeah.
But so what do you diagnose it as? So Justin, you said that the system under Kruger was basic, but I remember we talked about the system that Kruger was playing and was trying to get them to play. And you hear Dmitry Filipovich say that the system they were trying to play is like the epitome of square peg round hole, So what's different now? Is it just that they're playing more loose? Because all I heard about with Kruger was defense first, and like, you know, got to play responsibly in your own end. That doesn't feel like it's gone, but it doesn't feel like as much of a priority to me.
Look how much more the puck is down low behind the net. Every game, there's down low, working the puck, cycling the puck down low, getting it to the front of the net.
You mean not just getting it to the point for Colin Miller to fire it in the shin pad?
Before that's all they were doing. They were getting the puck in, and they were getting the puck to the points, and just shooting the puck from the points, and shooting from anywhere. It was quantity over quality, and that's all. And the system, they weren't allowing any creativity. Like, it's no coincidence that Dahlin has looked like Dahlin again the past 3 weeks. Am I right? It's like, that's not a coincidence. He's allowed to do what he wants to do. Look at everybody else on the team that's playing well. It's no coincidence that Kyle Poso he had 9 points, 9 games or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but something like that. Just lets players play and play high. It's just weird. You got like all these creative players, and it's like, let's get the puck to the point and shoot it, and we'll hope for it hit somebody. Or you know.
Even Skinner,
I get it.
Even Skinner's not having his 40-goal pace is back on the score sheet, scoring and setting up goals, and it's been fun to watch in that.
And the best part too is obviously all the injuries, but the young guys are playing. I was going off about that a few weeks ago. Like, what are we doing with these guys? They're not playing rushes. They're not playing here. Do something with them. Granato comes in and they're getting big minutes.
Yeah, and scoring.
Yeah, and oh my God,
they're not hitting 7 posts a game anymore.
Tage Thompson, Middlestat, and Aspen line is unstoppable. No, I want to say unstoppable, but they're very good. Every game, they're like
they're
line
playing
on
the top line minutes.
Yeah. Emerges in Middlestat. Even the empty
netter yesterday. Did you guys see that goal yesterday?
It's a nice empty netter as far as empty netters go. It's a really great play at the blue line to win the puck.
And then the dips he put on at center ice, he absolutely walked the guy at center ice.
He made that look so
then
easy.
drained the 100-foot birdie putt.
Yeah, people don't talk because he made it look so effortless.
It's a great play.
He literally put the puck on a string, pulled it around the defender at the center ice line, and then just made no mistake from 100 feet away. So the term that I hear is green light. Yeah. And they asked Don Granato, you know, because Granato's not afraid to say that they have a green light now. He was very quick to talk about players being anxious and like nervous to fuck up. Like, and now you hear the term green light. And someone asked him, I might have said this the last time we recorded, but maybe that was before this. You know, you talk about Dahlin having a green light. Why didn't he have the green light before? And Granato very diplomatically said, I'm going to talk about now. I'm not going to talk about the past. But I think in every word possible without saying, he was saying, fuck if I know. Like, his answer was very like, well, he's got the green light now. And yeah, he's going to make some mistakes, but he's going to be more encouraged by finding successes while making a few mistakes than he would be being told never make a mistake.
Which game was it that Dahlin got the puck in the offensive zone? Was it against New Jersey?
You talking about the play at the blue line where he walks around the Jasper Broughton feeds the play in the front?
Mm-hmm. No, when he scored.
When he scored.
It's the same game.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the Jersey game.
Yes.
I mean, it's plays like that have been missing.
Yep.
It's that creativity. It's allowing Dahlin to use his vision. It's allowing him. He looks a lot more like the player that we're used to seeing the first couple years in the league than the player that was the first half of the season. He's looking more like, okay, I'm able to play my game now.
3 plays come to mind. 2 from the New Jersey game when he walked in and scored. That was beautiful. The play at the blue line on the power play, that should have been a shorthanded breakaway. And Dahlin knocked the puck down.
That would have been a shorthanded breakaway 2 weeks before that.
Correct.
He would have overthought it. Yep. Brad would have taken it and gone right down the other way.
Correct. He knocked that puck down twice at the blue line. And then not only that, picked his head up and fired a beautiful pass out front to Middlestat. And the other one was the breakout pass to Taylor Hall.
Oh, yeah.
When Dahlin is behind his own net with Taylor Hall at like his 5 o'clock with his back facing the play. And Dahlin turns to his forehand and thankfully Hall read it. Hall had a feeling in his cockles that was coming because Hall was already breaking out and it ended up being a 2-on-1, I think, with Middlestat who scored.
I don't remember that
one. But Dahlin's behind his own net, behind his own goal line. He never even looked behind him. He just turned and put the puck on a rope beautifully. It had to be like a 75, 80-foot pass because it went from Allmark's right all the way to the left side of the blue line, and it turned into a 2-on-1. That pass, I would like to think Kruger would have benched him for. Like, it worked out, but it would have been one of those things where it would have been like, well, that wasn't a smart play. You just fired a pass through the entire offensive zone for them.
That makes a coach faint.
Correct, except it was on the money.
Yeah.
Taylor Hall was already booking it out of the zone, and it turned into a beautiful 2-on-1. And that's a play that Dahlin might have been afraid to make if he was afraid of getting but stapled to the bench because it was a bad decision in his own end.
Feels like every creative player, and maybe it's most noticeable was Skinner and Dahlin, it felt like they were afraid to be themselves and just play the game. They were terrified of going out. Did Kruger tell everyone that everyone has to touch the puck before we shoot because you can't just go and make a play and try to be? It was bizarre what the team was doing, and he had the players scared to be themselves. And I remember you mentioned Granato's comments in another regard. I remember his comments about Skinner very early in his tenure as the interim head coach. It's just like, I sat down with Jeff and told him he's important to the team and just go out and play his game. And weirdly, just telling him, hey, I'm not going to bench you just because you turn the puck over trying to be creative and help us win a game has done wonders for a guy whose entire MO is create goals and help your team win the game. And don't go down on the fourth line because I don't like how you play.
You know what I like about Granato too is like in a loss, he's pissed. You know, he's not happy they lost, and he's very critical of the team when they lose, as opposed to when a Kruger lose. Oh, we know shots will come. We keep working, shots will come, or it's hard to get shots in this league. We got to remember the things we got to do to score goals in this league. And just like we got to work on in practice, and he doesn't seem angry. He's like just coddle him. I don't hate. That's not what he's. It just sounds like he's coddling my children, and like it's okay, buddy. We'll get him next time. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get at.
It's also refreshing to hear a coach who is honest to the media. Is like, yeah, it sucks that we lost. We should have been better. We didn't do this well. Kruger's like, listen, guys, we're gonna score.
But we know better than you.
It's just nice that this guy's like he's demanding great performance.
We're still hearing about practices now. Today on the Instigators, I heard about how tough practice is now. That
you practice how you play.
You do it right.
You practice
or you do
how
it again.
play.
You do it right or you do it again, and that's.
I mean, the one thing that should be that is the hugest indicator of how much this team has turned around is the fact that in the last 8 games they've gotten 10 points.
And it really doesn't. The Caps game got away from them a little bit, but even the games they've been losing of late, really pretty much since Granato took over for Kruger, they're in every game.
They're going.
They're not getting walked out of games. They are tough to play against, even though they're not quite getting the results that you want. Teams are no longer looking at the Sabres and being like, "Oh, let's just walk through that one." You're gonna have to play your game. You're gonna have to score. The Sabres are not a pushover. They're obviously very far away from where they want to be, but they're playing okay.
The Rangers said after the, I believe it was after the game they won in the shootout. The Rangers, said that the Sabres were a very tough team, even though the Rangers came out with a win. They said it was a very tough game.
Even Lindy Ruff's come out saying nice things about him.
Yep.
And you know what's crazy about what they were doing? They were doing it without Jack Eichel. They're doing it with the bench Taylor Hall.
Without Dylan
Cousins. And they're still down McCabe.
And Borgen.
And they were playing good hockey. And I kept saying stuff. They look like they're just missing an Eichel and a Cousins.
Yeah, they're missing some talent now. It's not it's not the shit product on the ice with the talent.
It's like
it's a good product on the ice without the talent.
Out there, like, you know? Yeah. And I don't. It's going to sound like a stupid, naive Sabres fan right now, but they don't look like they're. You really think about it, they don't look like they're in that bad of shape.
Nope.
As you would have thought 3-4 weeks ago, because Eichel comes back, they got your top center in the world with Sam Reinhart, right? You got Dylan Cousins, who's a bona fide player. We know that now. He's a quality player. He can center his own line. You can put Cousins with Skinner. And now we got
Middlestat going.
We got the Tage train. We got Mitz, got his Mitz going.
Rasmus Asplund.
That whole line, that's like, we had like 3 quality scoring
R2
lines.
has not even been said yet, and he can rip it. Yeah.
It's 3 quality. So it's not as bleak as it seemed. Like Tage and Mitz stepping up, just getting the opportunity and learning how to, just getting the confidence and getting in a rhythm. Like, I don't get what they were doing to those two. Just let them fucking figure it out.
So,
like, Tage makes mistakes, but how else do you learn? You learn by your mistakes. Like, at least you learn by playing your game, and I can't do that. I gotta really pick my spots, and but look at him now. That line is buzzing.
So the which game was it? It was the Devils or the Rangers. They ended up winning the game. On the power play, it was the same. So let me back up. On the power play, Middlestat had a beautiful wide open net and cranked it off the post. He was standing in the face-off circle, got a one-timer. The goaltender wasn't even pushed over off the post yet, and Mitz cranked it off the pipe. 30 seconds later, Dahlin made that play at the blue line, and guess who scored? Casey Middlestat. And there's something to be said for that because they've been hitting posts all year. If posts counted for half a goal, they'd have won every game they fucking played because they've been cranking it.
And Jeff Skinner would have a lot.
Oh, he'd be
those.
leading the league in scoring. They literally were experts at hitting the post, and Justin would just be like, man, they're so snake bitten. They just can't finish. They just can't bury. The difference is here that, yeah, they hit the post, but 30 seconds later, it's in the back of the net because that doesn't define what happens from that point on. That's not the end of the scoring chances they generate. I don't know. Like they had a game where they only had 18 shots on goal and they scored 5 times that New Jersey game. And to be clear, they didn't get shellacked. It wasn't like New Jersey paddled them for 60 minutes and Buffalo got lucky and scored a few. Just of those 18 or 20 shots on goal they had, they were quality. And they scored. That was the game that Dahlin scored in the middle stand on the power play. I think they finished the game with 20 shots on goal, and New Jersey had like 32. But they didn't get pumped that game. It wasn't like they got some lucky bounces, and that's why they won. They were the better team just because they got better quality shots, and they played the game the right way. They generated good chances. I said to Justin weeks ago, their goals are no longer shots from the point that get deflected or it's a rebound. Their goals are coming from in front of the net. They're driving the net to score. Dahlin driving the net when he walked in and scored. Ruotsalainen on the back door. Mittelstadt on the back door. The goals are no longer fluky bounces from a point shot. They're playing the game more the quote-unquote right way.
I mean, you're even getting traffic in front of the net. You got Tage Thompson had a deflection goal the other day.
Yep. Well,
was it Friday?
Asplin's cleanup yesterday. Borgen Bryson shot that puck that was on end. It was a knuckle puck, and it hit Carter Hart in the left pad. There was nothing he could do with it because the puck was fluttering off Bryson's stick. And Asplin beat his man, who was desperately trying to catch him, water skiing behind him. And Asplin beat him and had a little backhand tap in, and that gave him the 4-3 lead and was the game-winning goal. Why? Because Asplin was cutting in front of the net and just, look what I found, a rebound, and buried it in. Like, I don't know. They've been fun to watch. We always are excited to sit down and watch the games. We never really lost that excitement because we're morons. But now it's like, if you missed yesterday's game, you missed something. If you missed the game yesterday, you missed something.
It was funny. I was at a family thing, and I was watching the game here before I went to the family thing. And it was 2-0 It was 2-0 Flyers. And I was out the second period and I fell asleep for like 5 minutes. And I woke up and it was 2-2. It's like, what the fuck happened? And then I went to the family thing and I pulled up my phone. I was watching my phone and never's giving me shit. You know, typical, oh, they stink. I've watched them in months, this, that, and the other thing. So I was like, oh, they just scored. And I was like, yeah, they said, oh, they just scored again. Oh, yeah, whatever. They stink. Oh, they just scored 3 goals in 2 minutes. It was pretty funny.
Yep.
I don't know.
I got to give Kruger credit for one thing. He was right. The goals did come. They came after he stopped having any say in how they played, but they did come.
Can we transition to the elephant in the coaching room?
Absolutely.
What percentage do you give Granato of being here next year?
I think you...
About 5%.
Really?
And it's not his
Seriously?
fault. I really don't think they're going to. I'm not saying that's fair. I don't know how much. I also know much of what's happening right now is because of him, and how much of it is just the weight was lifted off the team.
Yep.
Like, it could have been Granato, it could have been you, it could have been like anyone. Just be like, hey guys, I trust that you guys know how to play hockey. Play that, and they're like, oh, wonderful! Finally, I've been waiting all the time for this.
I don't think that's...
But no, I understand what you're saying.
He gets more credit than that,
what you're saying.
for sure. But
I completely understand what he's saying.
I get what he's saying, but I think he's...
Any change was going to improve. No, he's saying you could say that any change was going to improve the way this team played.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't play worse. I agree.
But I think what is very important, and I think what Kevin Adams is going to look at is how much the young guys have improved, and it's very. But the team is the youngest team in the NHL, and he's going to have a coach that's able to work with the young talent and make them good. That's really important for this team right now.
Not like he has any experience coaching development. Oh wait,
Yeah.
Team USA hockey.
Speaking of which, he coached Bjork,
Yep.
And Tage,
and Kajulia.
It's not a coincidence. I mean, I think they should keep him. I don't know. It's like I said, it sounds naive, Sabres fanish to me, but
If this team,
if they go to another veteran coach that's not going to give these young guys a chance, or whenever they breathe the wrong way in center ice and they get benched for the next 3 games, these guys got to play to get good.
I just feel like if this team if Bruce Boudreau is an option, they're going to take it over Don Granato.
That's fine. I like Boudreaux.
Me too.
I just like our young guys playing. It's like finally happening. Like I've been wanting to see I wrote an article earlier in the season, like put these guys on the same line. They will be good together.
Hey, which guys are you talking about?
Tage Thompson and Casey Middleton.
They should never do that. It'll never work.
I got a lot of shit for that. Because that paragraph and that thing. But hey, guys, I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I said Tage, Middlestat, and Cousins, but it's obviously not that. But it's pretty damn close.
It's even better, honestly, because that line made a lot of sense at the time because we didn't know how much Cousins would be capable of driving on his own. And he's become much more capable already at his young age of driving a separate line from those guys, which is so much better than even that situation that you painted because they don't need Cousins, but likewise, Cousins doesn't really need them. They're both being successful in their own
They can drive their
spheres,
own engines,
which is ideal. To have a second and third line currently being led properly by Dylan Cousins and Casey Middlestat is not something I necessarily expected.
They haven't had that since O'Reilly left. They haven't had another competent center since O'Reilly left. So now we're talking about having two behind Jack Eichel. Sign me up.
It's how good teams are built. I mean, they're a long way away from me being like, I think Casey Middlestat's a dynamite center. He's been playing very well, but he has to do it for a longer period of time before I'm like comfortable with it as the long-term play. However, I no longer am super worried turning on a game on a Tuesday night about the Sabre center death.
About them getting shut out.
Right. Another reason why I'm not super broken up, again, about Lazar. It's Asplund or it's I don't like Sheehan, but it's doesn't have to be Lazar. Your fourth center can be a guy.
And don't forget, right now, what they're showing is, like you said, Asplund could be one of the guys.
Yeah.
Reinhardt in an emergency could go in, fill in a center role because you know when Eichel comes back, he's going back to the Reinhardt's going back to the wing.
Yeah.
I believe R2 is a center too.
But you're showing that you at least got more than just Eichel at center that can go out there and capably play the position.
Wasn't Tage a center at one point in his career?
Yeah, he was drafted as a center.
Yeah,
I believe. That sounds right.
I'm not saying we should move him there now because it's working fine for him at wing with Casey, but you have 6 or 7 guys who are natural centers on the roster that gives you a lot of flexibility.
I don't know if I want a 6'5" center trying to take faceoffs though. That might be a little fun.
But my thing is to Jeff's point, I'd rather have a team of 12 centers because all of them can transition to wing versus a team of 12 wingers that none of them can transition to center.
The Sabres do have 12 centers.
Wow, that's...
But you know what I mean. You're always going to be easier for a center to slot into wing versus playing a Marcus Johansson and trying to force a wing to play center, and that just not working out.
I love everyone freaking out about the Bjork contract. It's still under $2 million. You got 3 years of control, and then he's an RFA. If they actually think he's going to be good, and I haven't watched enough of him to have an opinion. People were very quick to bury him on social media, but I don't know a lot about him.
Do you want the super positive spin?
Sure.
He didn't get to play enough in Boston.
I mean, that's what happens when you have so much
because he's also behind. It's not just the big three: Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasta. He's behind DeBrusque.
Yep.
He's behind Charlie Coyle.
Yep.
Right. He's behind those guys, and if he comes to Buffalo and gets to play more, could he be a Dominic Cahoon type that we were pleasantly surprised with? Like, wow, put this guy out there with some scoring talent, and he knows what to do. He was top 10 in Hobie Baker when he played at Notre Dame. Like he was a U.S. development. He was targeted as a U.S. development program player, which speaks volumes in and of itself because that's rare. Then he goes to Notre Dame and finished top 10 in Hobie Baker voting. So he's had it. I mean, that doesn't mean he has it, but he has had it. So if I'm being super positive, if he starts playing 16 minutes a night with some talented players around him, maybe he does show up.
It feels nice that they're actually trying to turn over the roster a little bit without going crazy. Like obviously not moving Jack or Sam or Skinner, but we talked about it before the season started. How last year it didn't work, and they were basically bringing pretty much everybody back. And then Hall was a very late addition to the team, but other than Larson going, Gergensons is only not here because of injury. He was going to be a key piece. All these other pieces of a team that didn't work come back year after year, and now it feels like at least it's fresh. It's at least if it doesn't work, at least they're trying something different. They're not trotting out the same 12 guys year after year at this point. Whether Drake Kajula comes over and he's a piece, or Bjork comes over and he's a piece, or R2 finally gets his chance and he's scoring beautiful goals. At least something is different. I'm not watching the same team stuck in the mud trying to wonder why they can't make Jack Eichel a 100-point scorer while surrounding him with the same 10 corpses every game. It's better. And I'm not saying it's going to fix the problems, but it feels like it's actually a step. And people, in my opinion, have been far too harsh on Kevin Adams today, because that's all I've seen on Twitter from local and national media alike is just, well, Kevin Adams got fleeced. He's out of his league. Those are the same people who don't know the situation. Kevin isn't going to go out there and throw Taylor Hall under the bus. Be like, well, we had an offer for a first-round pick and a prospect, and he said, no, I don't want to go play in Florida or whatever it was. That I'm sure he kiboshed at least one. I'm pretty confident at least that Toronto deal got nixed by Hall, and that may have been a first-round pick. Just the team is, he walked, I forget who said it earlier. It's not Kevin Adams' fault. I think it was you, Steve. It's not Kevin Adams' fault what he walked into when he took the job. A lot of these problems were inherited from Botterill. These are still Botterill issues that Adams is solving.
Got to deal with the Reinhardt issue.
That's a Botterill issue too.
I still don't think Sam should get paid more than $6 million. I don't think he's worth any more than $6 million.
I was saying, if you don't think he's going to get paid, if you don't want to pay him more than $6 million, then they've got to figure out what they're doing with him, because he's.
Why is he worth more than $6 million? He's not. I don't know.
Why is anyone worth $6 million?
I understand. Yeah, I don't know. But he's playing the cards he was dealt, and I don't think he's done a terrible job. I mean, some interesting things, but it's just the thing. It's so easy to dunk on the Sabres. It's lazy reporting.
Yeah.
Like, I just saw the Sabres grade F- on a twist. Someone like on the Athletic,
the non-Lasusan thing for the Athletic. Yeah, I saw that too.
It's just be better, and it's easy to dunk on this team right now. It has been for the past 5 years, but it's fucking annoying.
And if Hall goes to Boston and stinks up the joint, is everyone going to be like, "Oh, what a terrible trade by the Sabres"? Still, he might go there and score 20 goals. He might go there and score another 2 goals. Who knows?
I think you might. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I mean, realistically, we do have to give it time to a chance to play out how everything's going to work.
I do think
that is realistic.
I think you're going to see a big trade in the offseason to bring in a top 6, a real nice top 6 piece, and I think it's going to revolve around their top pick this season. Whatever they pick to land in the lottery, they're going to have to go out this season again and prove to Jack Eichel that we're doing what we can to get you pieces to play with and succeed. And they're not going to be able to sign another Taylor Hall. I don't think there's anybody out there. And if they're going to be able to come to Buffalo, they're going to want to come to Buffalo after this season, right? So they're going to have to acquire a nice piece via trade, and they're going to have a top 3 or 4 pick, and that's going to be a centerpiece of any deal this offseason.
Well, depending on how they do compared to Anaheim and a few other teams that they're slowly inching up towards in the standings.
Luckily, Darlene had the season he had this year because he's an RF. His deal is up this season, and thankfully, what they kind of do to this Hunter? Did they bridge him?
I think they have to. I think they have to bridge him because they need to wait for the cap to go up, and it's probably not going up again this offseason.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can pay him now. I think you give him the 2-year. You give him the 2-year, $9 million, $10 million deal, and then you tell him, hey, look, when the cap goes up, we'll be able to take care of you then with a.
He's still in proven mode, I guess. He's still got a.
He's also the fastest defender to 100 points since Phil Housley.
Fair, it's true.
If he's willing to sign to a longer term deal and a more team friendly number, I might do that.
Yeah.
The upside is the bridge is that you don't have to pay him now, but the downside is that, again, with the same situation you're going to be in with Sam, you're just kicking the can down the road. If you can get a guy who, and he could still become the generational defender that he was drafted to be.
Like
very
most
easily.
guys do in their mid-20s.
Right.
Not when they're 20 years old, but.
Let's call him generational defensive player, not generational defender. Let's change our verbiage there.
Defensor, my bad.
Yes, defensor. I like that. That's defensor.
Thank you. Gonna bring that word back. If he's willing to sign a longer term deal, but at a number that could be perceived as team friendly because he's unproven.
What's team friendly?
I mean, a guy like him projects to be a $10 million defender easily.
Yeah. So if Carlson and Burns are both making 10 and
7 or 8,
7 to
6 by 6.